I had to change the key because baby was crying so loud at night.
Then what should I do? When I asked Matthew again, for some reason his parents' voices came back.
You and the kid should camp out in the wild.
Following those unbelievable words, I could also hear his parents' laughter. I see, his father, Daniel, is also on their side. When I realized that, I said it out loud with a sigh. Okay, no matter where I sleep, don't complain.
Ah,
His parents and Matthew let out indistinct voices. They must have thought I had no place to go. But, unfortunately, I didn't expect to be locked out, but I have a place to go. And that's an inconvenient place for you. Well, you should regret it after I leave there. I don't care whatever you are going to say later on. Right now, all that matters to me is my baby Olivia. If I could protect my baby Olivia, I wouldn't care if you destroyed. I made up my mind and turned my back on his parents. My name is Stella. I am a housewife who will celebrate my 30th birthday next month. I'm a full-time housewife, but I'm not doing any housework at the moment. Of course, I am not slacking off. Actually, my daughter Olivia was born 2 weeks ago, so I'm resting now. That's why I don't do any housework. However, my husband Matthew doesn't care about that.
why aren't you doing housework? You just want to slack off, don't you?
Even Daniel was there when his wife, Camila, gave a birth. It seems like he doesn't know anything.
Usually, you start doing housework from the next day.
I'm really shocked that Daniel is saying this so openly. I wonder if there's someone who understands me. Things don't get along well with Matthew, and there is distance between Daniel and Camila. My parents are no longer here, and I have no relatives to rely on. However, even if I am alone, I must protect Olivia with all my might. By thinking like that, I managed to do my best. Maybe getting married was a mistake after all. I have been thinking that way more often lately. However, until we got married, both Matthew and his parents were kind to me. In particular, they were so considerate of me that they paid for our wedding. Are you sure you are going to pay for our wedding?
It's my only son's wedding. If I'm stingy, my relatives will laugh at me.
Camila laughs at that. The same was true for Daniel.
Matthew and I are both in the bridal industry. People from the company will also be coming, so we can't have an embarrassing ceremony.
Matthew and Daniel work at the same bridal company. It's a fairly well-known company locally. Moreover, the business is extensive. Main business is managing weddings, but this company also seems to be in charge of restaurants for parties. In other words, many of the people involved are deeply knowledgeable about weddings. That is why we can't have a cheap wedding. I understood why Daniel and Camila were paying for it. So Matthew and I had a pretty lavish wedding with the help of them. But the best was until the wedding. After we got married, I started living in their house, and they started giving me orders.
Hey, Stella, are you still not pregnant?
Huh?
Yeah.
Well, give vague answers. Then, Camila let out a sigh.
Huh? You are useless.
Huh? Am I useless? She asked her back immediately. However, Camila suddenly turned away from her.
It's nothing.
Camila clearly deceived her. Huh, maybe is she picking on me? For a moment, that thought crossed my mind. However, I also feel indebted to her for paying for our wedding. In the end, I couldn't force myself to ask Camila. On the other hand, Daniel treats me like a housekeeper.
Hey, there's no snacks.
Sorry, I'll get ready now.
You should have done this before I get home. You are not good for his wife.
Daniel begins to complain. I was shocked. What is that? Am I not good for his wife? Do I also have to take care of Daniel? I married Matthew and became his wife. That's why I'm willing to do anything for Matthew. Of course, I also want to do everything I can do for them. However, I think it's a little different for me to do what they order. I wonder if this is what Daniels really thinks. I was confused by the sudden change in their attitude. However, I don't have the courage to go against them. I believed that if I rebelled, I would be kicked out. I quit my job at the same time as our marriage. I don't have much savings left either. I don't even have my parents. Basically, if I were to get divorced, I would have no one to rely on. I was so scared of that so that I couldn't go against them. Even if Camila picks on me, or Daniel treats me like a housekeeper, I have no choice but to put up with it. I pushed my emotions deep inside. Then, one day, about a half year after we got married, when I was about to prepare breakfast, I suddenly felt sick and crouched down on the spot.
What? What happened?
Camila asks in annoyance. I'm feeling a little.
Huh, that's sloppy.
Sorry, just a moment. I ran to the bathroom. But no matter how long it takes, I don't get better.
Hey, what are you doing, Stella? What are you going to do when you leave the housework behind?
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. I'm going to work, so do your housework. Just do it.
Matthew says out loud. I was so bad that I couldn't even reply. A few hours later, I finally recovered. However, Camila was waiting for me in the living room.
You thought of a good way to skip the housework.
I don't mean to slack off.
Don't talk back. Shut up and do the cleaning and laundry.
I was startled by Camila's loud voice. Camila was staring at me, unaware of my feelings. It means I have no choice but to do it. I started doing housework while sighing in my heart. That worked out that day. However, no matter how much time passed, my condition never completely improved. I thought something was wrong, so I went to the doctor a few days later. As a result, it turned out that I was pregnant. I rushed home and told that to Camila first.
Oh, you got pregnant. I wish you'd told me sooner.
I overheard her father-in-law saying things like this.
Once a grandchild is born, Stella will be of no use to us. I might just give her a divorce.
Daniel was happily talking to his friend on the phone. I got freaked out. What fathers need is the one taking care of them. I kind of understood that because I was being treated roughly. But when I actually hear it in words, it makes me sad. I bit my lip and went about my housework. Of course, I thought about opening up about that with Matthew. However, as soon as Matthew found out about my pregnancy, he suddenly came home late. When I ask why, Matthew pouts at me.
Since you are pregnant, I have fulfilled my duty as my husband.
Eh? What do you mean?
If my wife doesn't get pregnant forever, my relatives will look at me with disdain, right?
It's like I helped make that happen. Matthew said out loud such a selfish thing. What's that? Don't be silly.
Shut up. Anyway, you should give a birth. That's your responsibility as a wife.
Matthew looked at me as if he got married me out of obligation. At that moment, I realized everything. Matthew won't help me. Actually, he is not even on my side. I'm all alone here. Also, Daniel and Camila weren't kind to me either. They were just being kind of me as their housekeeper who will give a birth of their grandchildren. As soon as I realized that, I lost my nerve. All of her love for Matthew disappears. Oh, that's right. If this baby is born, let's divorce. After that day, I started thinking about this. In that case, I should also prepare for divorce. I requested a background check on them using a few days leading up to the birth. In the meantime, the day of my birth came. A cute girl was born. Her name was Olivia. The day I brought Olivia home, both parents and Matthew were happy. However, their expression gradually got darkened. And then, finally, something happened. It was the day of Olivia's 1-month checkup. After completing the medical examination, I was sent home by Mr. Carter, the president of Matthew's company. Apparently, his daughter was birthed at the same time as me. So I and he met at a medical checkup on the same day, and with the kindness of President Carter, he sent me home. However, when we got to the front of the house, a problem came up. For some reason, I couldn't unlock the door. At a loss, I ring the chime and call out, "Hey, Matthew?" The front door won't open. Then I heard Matthew's voice from inside the house.
I had to change the lock because Olivia was crying so loud at night.
Did you change the lock on the front door without permission? When I asked again, Matthew spoke a little louder.
Baby cry like hell every day. I want to spend some time quietly, so don't come back home.
Then what should I do? When I asked Matthew back again, for some reason the voices of his parents came back.
You and the kid should camp out in the wild.
Following those unbelievable words, I could also hear Daniel and Camila of laughter. I see, his father Daniel thinks the same way. I realized it, and I said it with a sigh. Okay, no matter where I sleep, don't complain. They let out indistinct voices. They must have thought I had no place to go. But, unfortunately, I didn't expect to be locked out, but I have a place to go. And that's an inconvenient place for you. Well, the better regret it after I leave. I don't care what they are going to say later. Right now, all that matters to me is my baby. If I could protect my baby, I won't care if you get destroyed. I made up my mind and turned my back on his parents. Then I approached President Carter. Did you hear that, right?
Of course.
So, about what I was talking about earlier, could you please do me a favor? I asked President Carter. By the way, the story I just mentioned was something that President Carter told me on the way home. In fact, there are currently several hotels around here that offer postnatal care. President Carter's company, which operates a bridal business, was also trying to incorporate this postpartum care.
We want to have long relationships with our customers from marriage to childbirth and child rearing.
President Carter said so. Then, he asked me if I would be interested in monitoring the plan. President Carter nods in response to my question.
I'll just show you around.
Thank you so much.
Anyway, I can't tolerate that behavior.
President Carter stares at her in-laws' house. He is probably thinking of imposing sanctions on Matthew and the 3 others. Well, as the president of a company, I guess he can't overlook that. Especially if the company is trying to get into the kids' business. With this in mind, I made a proposal to President Carter. When President Carter heard this proposal, which I had been thinking about since before I gave birth, he gave a big nod.
Let's cooperate with your proposal.
Thank you. This is how I gained a strong ally. However, my body is exhausted. So, that day, I was sent straight to the hotel for postnatal care. Then, with the help of President Carter, he has allowed me to stay at a hotel. The postpartum care plan I experienced was the best. The hotel has professional staff such as midwives 24 hours. What's more, there was plenty of support, and there were many ways to relax. There were other new moms like me, and I was able to relax for the first time in a while. I want to stay here forever. That feeling just came out of my mouth. I was able to really rest. And the next day, President Carter came to see me. President Carter calls Matthew in front of me. Soon after, Matthew answered the phone.
Matthew, I'm really sorry for calling on your day off.
No, do you need something?
Actually, I have a favor to ask of you.
President Carter prefaced so and began the conversation.
I would like you guys to be a model for the pamphlet. Can I ask you to do it?
Are you saying that my wife, I, and our daughter are the models?
Look, your daughter was just born, right? Why don't you bring her in as a model for the pamphlet?
Certainly, it would be suitable for bridal-related pamphlets. But Matthew just kicked me out. There's no way he could accept it in this situation. I smiled. If Matthew refuses the president's direct request, there is no way that it will not affect Matthew's career. My strategy is to damage Matthew in this way. However, Matthew replied immediately.
It's fine. Leave it to me.
I got upset. I'm not able to have Matthew damaged if this is gonna happen. This strategy might be a failure. When I thought of this, President Carter grinned. Then President Carter said to Matthew,
Then come to the studio right away. Is it okay in an hour?
In an hour.
Oh, I'll get the staff together.
Just as President Carter was about to speak, Matthew interrupted in a panic.
Please wait a minute. Today.
Why?
No, I need to ask my wife.
Matthew begins to make excuses. Apparently, he thought he could convince me if he had time. You replied without thinking. Just look at it. I couldn't stop grinning.
Then talk to her right away. Daughter was just born and she's right there, right?
President Carter made a further attack on him. Matthew was completely silent. In the end, Matthew said he would talk to her and hung up. After that, needless to say, I had so many calls from him. Of course, I ignored all. My phone kept ringing for about 30 minutes. But it seemed like he finally gave up and my phone went silent. Immediately after that, President Carter received a call on his smartphone.
Well, my wife said it's embarrassing.
I never said anything like that. As I was thinking, President Carter let out an exaggerated sigh.
Can't you convince your own wife too?
No, that's not it.
I'm disappointed in you.
As soon as President Carter said that, he began apologizing loudly enough for me to hear.
I'm sorry. I'll definitely try to convince her.
The way he apologized sounded as if he was kneeling down right in front of him. After getting Matthew to apologize, President Carter hung up. Then, he calls his father Daniel.
Hello, Danielle.
This is President. What happened?
Actually, I have a present for you, but would you accept it?
While saying that, President Carter looks at me. When I smiled and nodded, President Carter spoke up.
You know that we run a restaurant for wedding after parties, right?
Of course.
I think I'll lend it to you.
Do you want to lend it to me?
I'm sure Daniel would shake his head. Actually, this is also my strategy. First, President Carter personally lends a large restaurant to his father for a wedding after party. Then, he told me to show off his grandchild there. After the 1-month checkup, my baby will be ready to go for walks. The party is gonna be held coincide in this timing. If this were a normal family, they might jump with joy. However, things are different in our current home. Daniel just kicked me out, and there was no way I would accept his invitation. And Daniel also started making excuses immediately.
No,
What? Are you refusing my present?
No, it's not like that. However, I have to take care of Stella's health as well.
Daniel starts saying things that don't even make sense to me. I felt offended. Then President Carter intervened.
Did she have any problems on her 1-month checkup?
No, that's not.
Then have an unveiling party. I'll pay for it, so don't worry about the expenses. And time would be.
President Carter moves forward with the conversation. All the while, he could hear Daniel's panicked voice. I'm panicking. I wonder what I'm going to do. I could only hold back my laughter. Eventually, President Carter finished speaking and he unilaterally hung up the phone. Just then, my smartphone starts ringing. It's from Daniel. I grinned while holding my smartphone in one hand. Now, what should I do? There was no need to ask about his side of story. So, there is also a way to leave it as it is. But there's nothing interesting about leaving it like that. And that makes me feel gloomy. So I was on the phone.
Hello, Stella.
It's louder than usual. He's so panicked. Anyway, I responded in a disgruntled voice.
Ah.
Are you Daniel?
Good. Stella, listen to me.
Why? No, I don't want to. I strongly rejected. He seemed stunned for a moment, but he soon regained his composure and begged me.
Please don't say that. I beg of you. Please.
At this point, it's like we've already won. But I held back my laughter and urged him to go ahead. What happened?
Actually, I have a favor to ask of you.
He told me what President Carter said in front of him. However, it sounds very convenient for him. He is not saying that this is an order from President Carter, or the date and time have been set. However, he keep repeating things like wanting to hold an unveiling party or renting it out himself. So I replied bluntly. I refuse. I've been kicked out.
No, that's...
He keeps making up his excuses. I was so upset that I couldn't help but raise my voice. Then, if you bow your head and apologize to me, I'll go to the unveiling party.
It is.
He stammers. Please send me a photo of you bow your head and apologize. If I can confirm it, I will go. See you. I said that and hung up the phone. I wonder if he cannot do that. I was thinking that he absolutely can't do that such things. However, contrary to my thoughts, a photo of he bowed his head and apologized was sent to my smartphone. If this happens, there will be a gap in my strategy. I was planning on making him apologize to the president by making the unveiling party a failure. I have to think of another way. While I was making a difficult face, President Carter was sitting next to me and gave me some advice.
How about something like this? At the unveiling party.
Listen to the story seriously. That was a really interesting idea. That can make Matthew and his parents-in-law mind-blowing. I'll do that. I immediately started preparing. A few days passed, and the day of the unveiling party decided by the president arrived. Of course, I haven't returned to their house for a long time. On the contrary, I had not even contacted them. It's good to make their heart beat a little. With these thoughts in mind, I headed to the venue with President Carter. When I peeked into the venue, I saw that my parents-in-law were being blamed by their relatives.
What's wrong? He's not coming.
That's strange. Daniel.
Daniel breaks out a cold sweat. Other relatives were also closing in on Matthew.
Didn't you leave home with your wife?
No, well,
There's no way we can go out together. Because we don't live together. However, it's bad to keep them waiting too long. I slowly entered the venue with President Carter. Sorry I made you wait.
You've finally arrived.
Daniel is relieved. On the other hand, Matthew approached me.
What were you doing, Stella?
Huh? Preparing for the unveiling party?
Preparations. But more importantly, where's Olivia?
Matthew looked around in a panic. You left me alone for a long time, I thought as I answered with a sigh. Olivia is being babysittered.
Huh? So, what about the unveiling party?
I've prepared the slides. That's fine. As I said that, I pushed Matthew away. Then I told my relatives who had gathered about the situation. Olivia isn't here, but I prepared a slideshow, so... While I was speaking, a female staff member began preparing a slideshow. I continued talking while checking them. I'm very sorry, but please show this. When I give the signal, gentle music plays. Then, the hall became dark. Several photos are displayed on the screen at the same time. At that moment, a voice of surprise leaked out from the venue.
What is this?
What was shown on the screen in the noisy venue was a photo of Matthew at the scene of his affair. Furthermore, cheating photos of Daniel are shown one after another.
So bad, it's the worst.
Naturally, Matthew and Daniel turned pale when they saw the photo. However, Matthew immediately became shocked and ran to stop the slideshow.
Stop. Don't play.
Huh? It's your fault, right?
It must be you. Why are you doing this?
Matthew shouts at me. So I shouted him back. It's because you locked me and Olivia out. You changed the lock on the front door while I and she are gone. It was quiet in the venue. Then it started to rustle.
Did you lock me out?
What do you mean?
While I was hearing that, I revealed the conversation I had when the key of my house was changed. I also mentions that President Carter was there too.
That's a lie, isn't it?
I'm sorry, but it's true. President Carter cooperated after seeing the scene. When I said this, President Carter nodded.
That's it. It's over.
Matthew crumbles. When I turned around, Daniel was already stunned.
In the future, our company will also enter into kids' business. That's why we don't need employees who can't take care of children.
That's not true. It's from lack of sleep.
There's no need for excuses. Resign. If you don't, I'll fire you even if you get into trouble.
The president's determination was amazing. In the end, Daniel and Matthew immediately submitted their resignations. After that, I asked Matthew for a divorce. The divorce between Matthew and I was easily finalized because of the photos of his affair. The case was also settled with Matthew paying me $2 million in compensation. Since Matthew had just received his severance pay, the alimony was transferred to me immediately. By the way, I also requested compensation from the woman who was with Daniel, but the woman claimed that she did not know that Matthew was married. It seems that the woman is going to pay compensation to me after she is also asking Matthew for compensation. It seems like a lot of trouble, but it doesn't matter to me. Also, Daniel and Camila don't seem to be getting divorced. They actually want to get divorced, but Matthew's legal fees have wiped out their savings. In order to cover living expenses for the time being, the three of them will sell their house and move into an apartment. There is also child support to pay for me, so I want them to do their best to live a frugal life. Meanwhile, I was approached by President Carter.
I have an employee who is about to quit, so if you're okay with it, would you be interested in working for my company?
That's what it means. Olivia is still small, but I cannot survive without working. That's why I'm thinking of having a help from President Carter in a little while. However, right now, I want to spend my precious time with Olivia quietly. I think I can be forgiven for such luxuries because I have had a hard time up until now.